into the top 10, and this is where I've put Sporting. And I've loved watching Sporting this season, and I almost felt a little bit harsh putting them down in 10th. Lowly 10th. Sporting, they've been brilliant. But then, look, it's not an exact science in that, but like, this essentially means that, however you kind of swing this, and obviously not all of the best clubs are actually present in the Champions League round of 16, but if you've got Sporting in your top 10, that means they're pretty much cemented as like a top 15 club in Europe this season. And that's a proper reality check. Like Sporting, who went 19 years without a title, couldn't get into the Champions League as hard as they tried for so long, are in the round of 16, deservedly so, and are rubbing elbows with some really, really strong teams. And I don't know, I guess as I was writing this out and as I was trying to figure out, who goes where, I was just mostly just like, wow, good on you, Sporting. You've had an exceptional couple of years here to bounce back into this kind of area.
Yeah, what a club, a well-run club at the moment. And look, you think back a couple of years, and Sporting were in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, right? There was the invasions of the training ground. There was the club president, inflaming tensions between crowd and players and fans and all of the above. And suddenly, in the last 2 years, Ruben Amorim's come in, 36 years old, one of the youngest managers in the Champions League in Europe, really, and has completely turned this side around. They lose Bruno Fernandes to Manchester United, who is the captain, the playmaker. Everything goes through Bruno, right? He is the entire heartbeat of this side. And yet, when he leaves, Sporting turn things around, and the next season go on and win their first Primera title in 21 years. And then they get to the knockout stages of the Champions League for the first time in over a decade, the season following. And Amorim is doing this with a lot of players that I think it's important to point out here, with a lot of players who have come through the Sporting Academy or come through the youth systems. Now, players move around a lot under the age of 18 in Portugal, right? And there are plenty of examples of players you'll see playing for all three of the big three before they reach the age of 18. And so it's a little bit difficult to say everyone is completely homegrown. But these are players who have been brought through the academy into the first team, and we're seeing them go on and do wonderful things. You look at the likes of Pedro Gonçalves, who is lighting things up, really, in terms of how he's playing now. And when you kind of look at what Sporting squad is, how much it costs, and look, yesterday I was looking at the amount of TV revenue that the Portuguese clubs get compared to pretty much everyone else in Europe, and it is minuscule. It's such a bizarre thing that the TV revenues can be so different between different countries, especially in the Champions League, and they're working kind of against the odds, I think. In so many ways, especially in European competition. And obviously you can hark back to 2003, 2004 when Porto won this, but times changed really fast, I think, in the footballing sense. And we're looking at a very different landscape to what things looked like 15, 16 years ago. And the Portuguese clubs are always, I think, in many ways punching above their weight, purely because I think someone at some point realized that Portugal weren't able to compete. Look, you have to look back to sort of 1998, that kind of period where Portugal were not a serious international force. And now you look at them and where they rank in the world and all of the above. And you're thinking, okay, this is a very different place. And it's because someone decided to invest in youth structures, in infrastructures, in bringing players through who could change things. And it's a remarkable achievement that they're in these conversations. And look, Sporting have been such a joy to watch. They were so good in those two games. The last couple, the games against Besiktas, where they were exceptional, and then to beat Dortmund in that game that really mattered and closed this group off. I've been so impressed with what Amorim's doing. I imagine that him, as we say, Pedro Gonçalves, João Palhinha are all going to be in massive demand very, very quickly. And ultimately, they're going to have to bring more people through the production line to see how this goes. But they only have to look at the team that topped their group in Ajax to see how this can be a structure that works and continues to work for everyone. And long may it continue. Long may it continue.
Yeah, just to add quickly on that before we move on, like this is also on the backdrop of a real talent drain because of what happened with the tensions between the fans and the president and an invasion of the training ground at one point as well. They lost a load of players for free, more or less, due to contractual disputes. Rafa Leao left, went to Lille, and Rui Patricio left, and Sporting actually lost quite a few really important players there before they even lost Bruno Fernandes, just to contractual disputes because of what had happened, and they've managed to fight back from all of that and field a completely different lineup, integrate a load of youth, find a great manager, and rip the script up a little bit. But we'll move into the top 10 here properly, and I'm going to just go through 9 and 8 together because they feel pretty similar in the same way that Atletico and Juve ended up sort of hovering around that 11th, 12th place together. Manchester United in 9th and PSG in 8th both have that same huge growth potential between now and February. So United feel a lot like that. Atletico kind of, where are we? What are we doing? Are we on the right track? Are we not? They're quite hard to gauge. I think 9th feels about right for them. I look down the list and I think I'd probably back them to beat just about, Villarreal, Salzburg, Benfica, and then probably like maybe Atletico and Juve is a very even game. Sporting becomes a very even game as well. There's the Ronaldo factor. They do tend to grind these games out, even if they may look second best. So United in 9th and PSG in 8th. I don't know what they're going to look like in February. Again, it's that question of, is the last couple of weeks where they've actually looked pretty good? The performance against Club Brugge on match day 6 in the Champions League was really strong, really conjoined, and they've just beaten Monaco on Sunday night as well. Is this a renaissance, or is it a coincidence? Is it something more, or is it something to ignore? I don't know yet, because I refuse to be swept off my feet by 2 good weeks when I've just watched the last 3 months of PSG. But it's an intriguing conversation there to be had, and I do wonder if they may be finding something in the absence of Neymar, which is a super awkward conversation to have for Pochettino when Neymar returns. And obviously he'll be fit and ready to go for February. So we'll have to see. But United and PSG, I think they're our final. What will they look like in February? I don't know. Huge growth potential clubs. We've got 4 of them there. 4 that are just total question marks. Absolute jokers in the pack.
I mean, I don't really agree with this because I think there are 6 favourites to win the competition. 4 of them are the English clubs. And there's Bayern Munich and PSG. Like, I just think that it's been since day one. Like, they're the 6 clubs I've been looking at as like that's where the winner is coming from. So I can kind of understand it, like given the performances we've seen and how flaky both of these teams can be.
On talent level, you're right.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that's what it comes down to now. Because we're in the knockouts, I expect these teams to rise. In the groups. Both of them, well, PSG were probably better than United, but United's performances obviously weren't convincing. But it was a different era now. Like, we can forget about what United did in the group stages because it doesn't matter. That's not Man United anymore. So I almost think you press reset on it and kind of look at their overall picture of what the squad is, what the manager is, what do we expect from him. And I think they're in the top 6 in terms of likelihood of winning this.
Yeah, I would agree with you at the start of the year. I would have agreed with you at the start of the year, but I do think that I'd look at Ajax, I look at Inter Milan, and I look at Real Madrid, and look at the way that they've performed, the way that they're performing generally, domestically as well. And no way on earth can I put PSG or Manchester United ahead of any of them in terms of any sort of standings. So you
genuinely think that there's more chance of Ajax winning the Champions League than Man United or PSG?
The Man United 100%, than PSG less so. But
it's an incorrect answer. It's an incorrect answer.
It's not, because we saw Ajax seconds away from the Champions League final a couple of years back. I think this side is...
Did they get winners' medal did they?
Well, I mean, to be fair, when was the last time Manchester United picked up a winners' medal? It's 12 years ago. We just said the complete landscape of football has changed. And we're looking at that going, right now, I think that Ajax would beat Man United straight up, 100%. I think Inter Milan would. I think the Real Madrid would. I think that, and looking where we are, in terms of where we are in February, I expect these standings to be slightly different, right? But if we're looking at this right now, I don't think you can put these 2 teams above any of the ones mentioned in terms of their performance levels or what we've seen from them throughout the season so far in either a domestic or a European sense. There's nothing to prove to me that that's happened.
I mean, it's all. But look, the best thing about football is it's all about opinions, and we can't really be proved right either way right now. But like, Ajax have a very different setup at the start of their season in terms of what they're aiming for and what their conditions are for success. Manchester United and PSG have the complete opposite. Like, PSG literally have to win the league or it's a failure. Man United have to be in the conversation to win the league or it's a failure, as Solskjaer's found out. And obviously Ajax do too. And at the moment, I don't think they're even winning the league as it stands. But
Their point.
They will win the league. Like Ajax will win the league this season, but the Champions League is where they make their mark. Like this is what the club's become about. So I just think the conditions are slightly different, and I just don't think that Ajax are as strong as these two teams. But like you say, like from what we've seen so far, I'm wrong. I understand that, but I don't think I'm wrong generally.
The problem here is that PSG have absolutely just worn me down for the last 3 months. Like I don't
enjoy watching PSG.
Every time I watch them, I'm just like, why are you not 10 times better?
Yeah, it's frustrating watching them.
And it is so difficult for me to sit there and put them in like a top 6 position when on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, I sit there and just be like, this ain't it. This just ain't it. And like the teams above from here, so we're now into 7th place and above. All of these teams are teams. They are. They're teams. They have an identity. They have a cohesiveness. They look like they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing on the pitch, and that's what makes them a little bit better than everybody else, in my opinion, anyway. And I'll go to number 7, and this is where I put Inter, which is a very well put together side. They've got a really tough round of 16 draw, but you never know with this team. Inzaghi's done an amazing job building off the Conte base. They've really stepped it up over the last month. They finished second in their group, so I think this is the second highest second place finisher, but they were in a tough group and they got edged out on the final match day. And I think they're a force to be reckoned with, to be honest with you, Inter. And yes, they're underdogs for the Liverpool game, absolutely. But they are a rough draw for a top seed in Liverpool. And I don't think the Reds would be too happy with that. I moved just into a couple more. Ajax in 6. I've been propping them up as a top 5 team for weeks. And I wrote the list down and somehow I've let them slip to 6th. I'm not exactly sure how that happened. I had a perfect group stage. Haller scored 10. I think Anthony and Mazraoui were the best right side in the tournament over the 6 games. But I guess to explain this properly, really, we then link in number 5. And this is where I've put Real Madrid. Yeah. So Madrid 5, Ajax 6. And it's a recent swing. It is a recent swing. But Madrid have just been on this run recently and they've been incredible. And I just look at them and I see a team who win. They just win, don't they? I mean, they don't always play well. Christ, they often don't play well, to be honest with you. But if you've got 2 attackers in the form that Vinicius Jr. and Karim Benzema are in, you've got this midfield 3. You've got Alaba and Militao in this form and Courtois in goal. There ain't a lot of teams that are going to be able to beat you. And especially in this Champions League setting, there's something about Real Madrid, isn't there? There's something about them. And I've been wooed. I must admit, I've been swayed into putting them into the top 5 when I thought for sure that Ajax would be there, but I've just popped them in ahead. So that's Real Madrid at 5, Ajax at 6, and Inter Milan at 7.
Yeah, I mean, Real Madrid feel inevitable at the moment, don't they? There is that real sense of we're just going to win, and it's been perhaps missing at the Bernabeu for a couple of years, right? Where there was a couple of years in the wilderness. Not that they didn't win anything, but that it wasn't quite as well, just obvious, I suppose. And it feels like this year Real Madrid are just back in a spot where, Militao and Alaba have become a really wonderful defensive partnership who feel like they're not going to concede. Courtois is a man on a mission, and probably the form keeper in the world right now, I would suggest. He just feels like you can't get past him. You go out wide and you're looking at Ferland Mendy, who's made that spot his own, and Dani Carvajal, who's having his own little renaissance. I enjoy how he keeps popping up front during counterattacks. It's bizarre. And then, there's this midfield 3 who just are ageless and timeless, aren't they? And it's really intriguing that Camavinga's come in, that the Valverde has been, given the release clause that he's been given and kind of promised the future and the keys to the Bernabeu, by himself. And yet neither of them can still break the spell that these 3 hold over the center of the park there. And look, Kroos and Modric, Casemiro is Casemiro, right? Casemiro does what Casemiro does every single time, and he's never really fallen away from it. But I think there were questions over whether Kroos and Modric could continue to control games in the way that they used to and be able to come up with those moments of magic. And those questions have been fundamentally answered this season. The 2 of them just feel like Rolls Royces in there, and no one could get near them. It's intriguing to watch Real Madrid because even when they're not playing well, one of these two pops up with the answer. And I know it's Benzema and Vinicius getting the headlines, and I know it's those stories that are coming out about the fact that they used to have this relationship where Benzema was like, "Don't pass the ball to Vinicius," etc.
Well, you keep mentioning it for a
well,
start.
I do, so I keep
making
it. It's very important, right? To talk about redemption arcs, part of my thing, right? And this is a redemption arc, but it does come up, and then you look at it and you think these two playing together now and watching them just kind of interlink, and Vinicius finally find the kind of finishing touch that had been missing from the Magic up to this point. And you know what? Fair play to Real Madrid for the faith that they showed in Vinicius. You know, as a youngster, yes, he was a prodigiously talented youngster, but that doesn't always work out, right? There are plenty of prodigiously talented youngsters knocking around in the lower echelons of top leagues who haven't quite made the grade to where we were expected, or even below. Vinicius Jr., there was a lot of pressure on those shoulders. He came in, and for ages he was, well, kind of mocked, I think, by a lot of people for not having the finishing touch, for just being all show and no kind of, well, no end product. And this year has exploded into one of the most dynamic, exciting players to watch in Europe. And you mark that with Benzema's kind of faith and constancy and the ability he has to just put the ball in the back of the net and create things and be that kind of link-up player. And it's amazing, but it is those midfield three for me that continue to set the pace and set the tone. And right now, Real Madrid feel so smooth.
So a couple of things to just watch out for here between now and February with Real Madrid is that it's like, now obviously they have incredible footballers and great finishers, so this isn't particularly abnormal, but they are way overperforming their expected goals, like way over. And it's the sort of run statistically that if you didn't know it was Real Madrid, if you didn't know it was Benzema, if you didn't know it was Vinicius Jr. in this form, you would suggest can't carry on. And you watch them in some of these games recently, second best for periods against Atletico, second best for most of the game against Sevilla, but they won them. Those are the performances that don't necessarily match up to the results. So it's just, I'm not really criticising them for it, to be honest with you, but I just say it's something to watch. We're talking about four teams below them there, PSG, Man United, Atletico, Juve, with a lot of room for growth between now and February. I'd say Real Madrid, and again, not really that much of a criticism, may have the most room to just drop down a level or two between now and February, but I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
I mean, Madrid deserve to be fifth just because they've got Vinicius Jr., who's the most entertaining player in the world right now. Like, it's just like a highlight reel, isn't he? Every time he gets the ball, he's doing something ridiculous to people. Like, it's horrible. Like, the prospect of who's going to be marking him.
Yeah, not nice, huh? Not nice.
Whoever's marking him, like, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Well, into number 4 then, and this does feel a little bit low for the reigning champions, but this is where Chelsea land. They've occupied top spot in the Premier League for longer than any other club has in this season, and they are the reigning champions. They were crowned champions back in May. So for 4th does feel a bit odd, but we're ranking them as we sit here right now in mid-December, and right now they're in a little bit of a wobble. Now, that is completely explainable. They have a Liverpool-style injury crisis in one specific position. All of their central midfielders can't play football. They're having to find solutions on the fly. They are getting some results as a result of that, but they are also conceding goals. They've conceded 8 in their last 3, which is quite a lot. It's more than they conceded in all the games up until that point. But it's explainable. That said, I can't just brush it off and ignore it and say, well, no, just put them second, because right now they are in a little bit of an injury crisis. They do feel a little bit weaker than they should do. And they are feeling the loss of Ben Chilwell as well. So again, between now and February, maybe Chelsea stake a claim for one of those top 2 spots even and reassert themselves. But in the little weird kind of battle we've got with this top 3 English teams, Chelsea do actually feel like the 3rd strongest in that little cluster, which I would not have said this time last month.
Yeah, there's a real kind of moment, isn't it? But, and we can blame, well, we're not blaming it on anything. Blaming is the wrong word, but there is feasibility in that this is an injury crisis, right? And again, we talked about it a bit on Monday, but Chelsea's midfield injury crisis is a real problem at the moment, and it's impacting directly on the defensive elements of this team. Now, this team was built on solidity, and the fact that they didn't concede many, they won a lot of games 1-0 last year, right? They literally eked out results and made plenty of games tight and difficult and uncomfortable, and yet they got it done because they were so good. Now they've conceded more than half of their goals for the season in December, which is not great. If you're looking at where you're kind of falling apart in a little blip.
Well, you could say it was like the most ridiculous defensive record you could have imagined up to that point, though, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what it was built on, right? It wasn't like it was an unsustainable defensive record because it was so well put together. And sometimes
expected goals against figures were ridiculously low. Yeah. They were consistently like 0.4, 0.3, 0.2.
So, you're looking at a side who were defensively incredibly cohesive. They were watertight in so many ways. Now, without the midfield being able to cover them, we've seen that fall apart a little bit in recent weeks. Now, do I think that will come back? Yes, I think it will be fine. And I think that Chelsea will go on to kick on and have a good second half of the season. But on the whole, this at the moment, they definitely do feel like the third strongest British side, I think, and you can only take this on what we're seeing right now, as we said with kind of everything else. Chelsea threw away top spot in this group. Yes, they've got lucky with the draw twice, but when you look at it and you think that this is a Chelsea side who conceded 8 goals in 3 games, when and then they conceded a last minute goal in the Zenit game to hand top spot to Juventus, and all of the above. Right, we're looking at a team that doesn't quite feel as watertight as it did before, and therefore I think I completely agree with this, Sam.
Yeah. And into the top 3 here, this is actually one of the toughest ones to place, not in terms of where to go 1 to 16, but Bayern Munich in third. We all agree Bayern are top 5. We probably all agree that Bayern are top 3, but where in the top 3 or the top 5 do you put them? And honestly, I've settled for third. I can accept and entertain arguments for second, maybe even first. Maybe I could go as low as 5th. They really do feel like, obviously they're really good, but how good? And it's difficult. It's genuinely difficult to figure it out because you don't have this comparison point yet. That's the beauty of the round of 16 and the quarterfinals is Bayern probably end up meeting one of these teams, a Chelsea, a Man City, a Liverpool, a Real Madrid. And you get a really good comparison point for exactly where they are. But until that point, it is a little bit of speculation. It's a little bit of guesswork. And I think what has made me hold Bayern back from the top 2, and these are fine margins, it's that they don't have one of the best managers in the world. They do have one of the future best managers in the world, but he's not quite there yet. And their centre-back pairing is just a little bit more prone to implosion than the others. And that's it. That's the deciding factor. That's all I can really pick at with Bayern Munich. And that's why they've ended up as third.
Yeah, I mean, last season it was like, they're going to win it. They're going to win it. They're going to win it. Like, they are the best team in Europe. They didn't win it. And this season, you're looking at them, and they don't have that inevitability about them that they did then. But, we're at the stage of the season when perhaps that doesn't matter too much. They'll grow and get stronger. Obviously, the fact that Nagelsmann's there is a bit of an unknown. Like, are we convinced that Nagelsmann can manage them through this period and like through what's going to be, a difficult set of fixtures, whoever they get from here to the run into the final, if they were to get there? Like, there's some big games to come, some big tests for him. And often he doesn't come through those tests when faced with them so far, albeit not with the quality of player he's had at his disposal right now. So there's a lot of unknowns there, as well as the fact that, we know that Lewandowski can deliver if he's fit, and, the core of this side is perfectly capable of winning the Champions League. At the moment, I think third is probably right for what we've seen.
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm glad you agree, Dean. And I'll move into the top 2, and it's the 2 English teams, and I'm sure people have figured that out as we've gone through, that it would be these 2. But I guess the order it's a pick'em, isn't it? It's a bit of a 50-50 at points. But at number 2, I have placed Liverpool. So it's another team like Ajax and like Bayern Munich who have gone 6 for 6 in the group. They've been perfect. And it's funny because when we talk about the Premier League title race and we talk about these 3 teams in the Premier League title race, and we're looking for reasons to decry them, we're looking for, nitpicking little reasons here and there to try and find edges that other teams might have. In Premier League parlance, that's AFCON. Liverpool are going to be hurt by the Africa Cup of Nations. They're going to lose Mane and Salah and Naby Keita if he's fit. That doesn't apply to the Champions League. It just doesn't. By February, they'll be clear. They'll have the best players in the world back in their team. They'll have the best player in the world this season back in their team. And look, I love the variation to their attack. I love the fact that they can go down the right and link with Trent and Salah. They can go down the left and use Robertson. They've got good dominance in the central areas. Got an incredibly solid defensive line once again with Virgil van Dijk in there. Thiago's come on a level. Fabinho is still brilliant. There's not a weakness to pick out here for Liverpool in a Champions League context. There really isn't. And so for them to be second means that number one has to be basically perfect. And I think that's maybe what Man City have achieved so far this season. Pep Guardiola's Man City, they feel like the strongest team in Europe for me right now. And that's a very simple formula for putting them top. Who do I think is the best team? Well, it's City. Incredible depth, brilliant system, some of the best players in the world in just ludicrous form. We're talking Cancelo and Bernardo there, but a couple more. And more than anything as well, the football they play is absolutely unreal. Now, there is almost nothing between City and Liverpool, in my opinion. And it really is like flipping a coin at points. But I'll take City. Me personally, I think they look like the strongest team in Europe.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, they are the best football team in Europe. Like now, if you were to get everyone at their very best, then Man City are the best team. Obviously, there's the fact they've never won the Champions League that goes against them here, whereas Liverpool have got a history of going on and winning the Champions League. I think it does count for something. I really do. I think that having that knowledge in your head of like, we are a team that wins this competition, or oh no, this is where we fell short. I do think those little fragilities can get into the mind and play games as you get deep into this competition. And so I do worry about Man City in that sense once we're at semi-final stage. But like you say, like we can't, that's just guesswork. And for what we're seeing on the pitch right now, Man City have got it all. And, the guys, they always have somebody that steps forward, right? For Liverpool, most of the time, I know it sounds pretty harsh because they're a great football team, but they are quite reliant on Mo Salah stepping forward and providing like a perfect penalty, a match-winning, cuts inside, bends on it, whatever it is. Mo Salah usually can be relied on to provide that moment of magic. And it's not always him, but most of the time it is. With Man City, it's a bit more varied. It might be Cancelo, it might be Bernardo, it might be Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne if he comes back into form, or whoever it is. Like, they kind of rotate that responsibility of stepping up. And I think that probably is what gives them the edge here. Although, as you say, there really isn't a lot between these sides. And if they were to play each other 10 times in a season, they'd probably win 5 each. Like, I really don't think there's anything between them.
They're almost perfect. There's perfectly built teams. Like the two best managers in the world for my money, with the two best squads or best 11s in the world. It's just there's not a lot to pick between them. What a glorious situation to be in for an English football fan.
I mean, the fact they lost to PSG is a little concerning for Man City, because they shouldn't have lost that game.
No, it was a ridiculous game.
But that's Man
Bernardo
City
missed from 2 yards, Dean.
I know, and this is Man
Leipzig,
City in the Champions
right?
League, isn't it? This is the difference between City in the Prem and City in the Champions League, is those things tend to happen to them in the Champions League, whereas Liverpool, if you were to put you had a lot of money, like UK, you even put this on Man City or Liverpool, I would probably go Liverpool, because I just can rely on them a bit more, and I'd be waiting for Man City to do something stupid like that Bernardo miss to mess it up.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I get you.
I would have put Liverpool top as well, purely because, as you say, Sam, there is nothing between them as far as I'm concerned. If they meet each other, I have just a thing that Liverpool have City's number a little bit. They're the only club, I think, in the world that I really feel like they have City's number a bit at the moment. Even Chelsea, who obviously had a couple of good results against them last year, struggled against City this season. And it did feel in some ways that just that difference of Liverpool having been there and done that. And look, when it got to the end of this competition last year, I said City were the best team in the competition and probably should win it. This was the opportunity. And they didn't, right? They didn't get that over the line. Now, obviously, it's a one-off game in knockout football. Anything can happen. It's very hard to use it as a barometer of who's the best team in where, because weird things happen in knockout football. But as Dean said, he thought Bayern were the best side, then Lewandowski got injured, then they got knocked out by PSG. Things like that happen. But when you're looking at this in that kind of response, I thought that City were the better side and last year and didn't do it. And for that reason, there's just that thing that hangs over them. And considering it's so tight between them and Liverpool, I would argue that Liverpool's caliber in this competition therefore gives them the slight edge. But as you say, there's nothing in it. That would
really
just be the way I'd have it round.
I'm just looking at the stats from when they actually played each other in October, and it was obviously Liverpool 2, Man City 2. They went 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. And the stats, okay, Man City did have more shots than Liverpool in that game, but possession was 48-52. Passes, 501, 529. Like, usually you're not getting that kind of leveling. Pass accuracy, 84% Liverpool, 83% Man City. Even like yellow cards, 3 each. Like, everything's the same. Like, this is two teams that are just pretty much right there, and it's almost that a mistake is going to cost them. Like, this is what we've said before. Like, it's the little things that you can't expect in a game. Look at Chelsea. You're talking about the way that they've started to crumble defensively in recent weeks. Well, a lot of that has come down to individual error as well, whether it's Mendy in goal, whether it's Jorginho trying to bring a ball down against Man United and Sancho scores, whether it's Alonso giving the ball away. Little things like that can creep in, and they start to skew the stats, and they cost you games. And ultimately, you'd imagine that's what's going to happen to either Liverpool or Man City, to not win it rather than they get overrun by somebody.
Absolutely. I don't think it's possible to overrun either of these teams.
No.
So, yeah, forget that one for sure. But, hey, there it is.
Nice.
That's the ranking.
We'll see how it compares in Feb.